I don't know, you feel like dirt, at the end of the day. You feel like, why am I doing this? Is this like how my whole entire life is going to be like after high school? Am I just going to be working these horrible jobs my entire life where I'm not like appreciated for my work, and I'm making at most like maybe $20K a year, but that's it. It's a hard struggle, so it kind of just feels like after a while you're just wasting your time and there's no real point in working. But after you've worked so long, you now have like financial responsibilities that you need to take care of, so you're kind of stuck in this trap. In my household, like, I'm expected to contribute, so I can't like just say, okay, I don't want to work that much anymore. It's almost like set up like this, where you have somebody who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They go into the field and they're like, I'm going to do a good job. And then they start getting worn out over time. And then they're going to leave. And then they're just going to bring somebody else on in to fill your role. If I didn't exist and I wasn't willing to work for them, they'd have nothing. Same with everybody else who's at that company. Society doesn't function when we're gone, but yet we get paid scraps. You have to. There's no like alternative for you. You have to work that, or else you don't survive. You don't survive in this world. I had chopped off the tip of my finger, pretty badly, and they couldn't find coverage, so I chopped out my finger at 10. I wasn't able to leave work till like 3 or 4 that day, and I had to work through my entire shift with the tip of my finger hanging off and not knowing how bad it was. After that happened, I just was starting to go to work less because I was like, I was just depressed. I was like, I can't believe I'm like scarred for the rest of my life because I worked some shitty minimum wage job. But then my life was out of balance again because now I wasn't earning money and I need money. I either go to a corporation and I can live a little, just a tiny bit, on the outside, or I can absolve from working altogether, and after a while my funds run out and then I'm like running back to them. I'm just de-stressing after work. I never have like time to myself really. It's just recovery, then working, recovery, then working. Every person who works a job nowadays in this country and is working as much as I am a week, they feel the same exact thing. The only way to fix that is to cut back on your own hours at work, but then you're cutting back on your hours, now you're not earning enough money. The system really loves you to put you in this very uncomfortable position where you don't want to do this. Like, you absolutely don't want to be putting all your effort into working a job. But at the end of the day, that's what you have to do in order to get by. In a month, I'm making like $2K a month, okay? For the place I used to live at, which was $1,800 a month, that was enough to cover rent, but that's it. It's either that or it's the switch around, where I have enough to pay for my bills now and get food, but I can't pay for rent. There's no way to live. They don't care like what your life is like. They care about what your work is like. That's all they care about. My first paycheck, I didn't spend a single dime. It went to my family entirely. I just drone out. I don't feel anything. I'm nothing here. I'm absolutely nothing here. All I'm doing is helping people day to day who have already experienced life and are more successful than I will ever be at this job. You're just a warm body at the end of the day until you grow cold.
With the way things are currently, lifetimes are being stolen and wasted. So reading about economy and politics and forming a more well-rounded understanding of the world, and then sharing that with people you know, especially working people, is a pretty good starting point. I'm an audio technician and stagehand. I work freelance. My schedule is completely different week to week depending on the availability of jobs. Technically, I'm an independent contractor and I'm self-employed, but most of my work is subcontracted through a variety of companies I work for, so I'm not really self-employed. In my first several years of working, there were many things that frustrated me about my line of work that I've come to realize in recent years aren't exclusive to my line of work, but are uniform to all labor under capitalism. In the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic crises revolving around that, I became interested in reading into political economy and economic theory, which have since laid an incredible foundation for approaching any topic in the world of politics or economy and in labor. The wage laborer is unable to produce their own food and their own housing. They're completely alienated from their means of subsistence. And it appears at first as the laborer making the decision themselves to sell their time, and that they could have however much time they want to themselves, when in reality, the wage laborer is required to work a pretty substantial amount of hours in order to pay for their bare necessities, such as rent and food. So while they appear to be free, they're actually pretty indebted to their employer. When I talk to people about the nature of work and our means of subsistence, people tend to get hung up on how we quantify all those things in money. Everybody always says, how can you possibly quantify this amount of food to this amount of work, or this amount of food to this amount of food? It seems like a reduction of the useful quality of both labor and commodities. And I think something that has cleared that up a lot for me is the difference between use value and exchange value. Use value is the useful quality of something. An apple is food, can be eaten. A hammer can strike a nail. Whereas exchange value is the ability for that commodity to be exchanged for another, which historically can be exchanged for money, which has no useful quality outside of its ability to be exchanged. All that being said, theoretically, what if we didn't have to concern ourselves with exchange value at all? What if we were only concerned with use value? The collective labor force of humanity could be used for something more than the accumulation of capital and creating exchange value. The goal is to create an economy centered around use value, where the means of production are held in common by all people, and humans are not alienated from their means of subsistence. With the way things are going currently, the majority of people in the United States have to work at least 40 hours a week. On the one hand, humanity has achieved the most social organization of labor that it ever has. We live in a global economy for the first time ever. And on the other hand, the wealth is concentrated in fewer and fewer people than it ever has. As long as the organization of labor is under capitalism, the concentration of wealth will continue to concentrate in the hands of fewer and fewer people at the expense of more and more people.